2:11 AM Kamchatka Standard Time. The Sea of Okhotsk is an enclosed body of water bordered on the west by the Russian mainland, on the north by the Magadan coastline, on the east by the Kamchatka Peninsula, and on the south by the Kuril Islands chain. Its international waters status is contested. The Russian Federation has periodically asserted that the entire sea constitutes Russian internal waters, a claim rejected by international maritime law but enforced through Russian military behavior with enough consistency that most commercial and military operators apply a practical deference to it, regardless of the legal position. U.S. military aircraft conducting signals intelligence operations over the international waters of the Okhotsk had been doing so since 1952. The RC-135 flights that operated out of Kadena Air Base in Okinawa and periodically from Misawa Air Base in northern Japan had been conducting those operations for 31 years under the successive designations of the Rivet Joint program. Every Russian signals intelligence operator in the Pacific Theater knew the RC-135's acoustic signature, its electronic emissions profile, its standard flight parameters, and its purpose. What made 2:11 AM different was not what the RC-135 was doing. It was what two Su-35S aircraft launched from Elizovo Air Base on Kamchatka were doing in response to it. The Su-35S was Russia's most capable fourth-generation air superiority fighter, a heavily modified derivative of the Su-27 airframe with thrust vectoring capability, active phased array radar, and an integrated electronic warfare suite that made it the most electronically capable Russian fighter in operational service outside of the Su-57 program. It was a serious aircraft flown by serious pilots. The two Elizovo pilots had been dispatched under orders that they had received at 1:53 a.m., 18 minutes before the intercept, following a surveillance radar track update that had placed the RC-135 on its standard collection pattern over the northern Okhotsk. The intercept order had included a specific instruction that had not appeared in previous RC-135 intercept tasking: direct the aircraft to land at Elizovo Air Base on the grounds that it was operating in restricted Russian airspace. The RC-135 conducting signals intelligence collection over the northern Okhotsk had been on station for 2 hours and 44 minutes. Its collection posture was routine. Passive signals collection against the Russian Pacific Fleet's communications and radar infrastructure, a mission that generated intelligence of consistent operational value and that had been challenged by Russian interceptors on 47 previous occasions in the preceding 4 years. The standard Russian response to an RC-135 over the Okhotsk was an intercept. Two Su-27 or Su-35 aircraft would approach, conduct a visual identification pass, demonstrate the intercept capability, and return to base. The intercept was a statement. The RC-135 would acknowledge the intercept through standard airspace notification procedures, maintain its course, and continue its collection. This had been the operational pattern for decades. At 2:11 a.m., the two Su-35S aircraft from Elizovo did not conduct a standard identification pass. They arrived at the RC-135's altitude and position, 41,000 feet, 280 knots, over international waters 190 kilometers east of the Kamchatka coast, and then did something that had not been done in the preceding 4 years of routine Okhotsk intercepts. One aircraft positioned itself 30 meters off the RC-135's port wingtip. The other positioned itself 30 meters off the starboard wingtip. Two Su-35S aircraft, 30 meters off each wingtip of an unarmed signals intelligence platform over the Okhotsk at 2:11 a.m. The RC-135 crew reported the wingtip intercept to Pacific Air Forces Command at 2:12 a.m. The report was transmitted on the secure command net with a tone that the RC-135's mission commander had developed over 11 years of Rivet Joint operations: precise, unemotional, factual, and about 14 seconds shorter than a standard intercept notification because she had assessed that 14 seconds was not something the current situation could afford to waste. The notification reached PACAF command at 2:12 a.m. and 31 seconds. At 2:12 a.m. and 49 seconds, the lead Su-35S pilot transmitted on the International Aviation Emergency Frequency, the frequency monitored by all aircraft in the region, a statement in Russian and English that the RC-135 was in restricted Russian airspace and was required to land immediately at Elizovo Air Base. The transmission included a bearing to Elizovo and an instruction to reduce altitude. The RC-135 was not in Russian airspace. It was 190 kilometers from the Kamchatka coast, well within the international waters of the Okhotsk, whose status Russia contested, but which had not been legally recognized as Russian internal waters by any international body. The transmission was noted, logged, and not complied with. The RC-135 maintained course, altitude, and speed. The mission commander transmitted the intercept demand notification to PACAF at 2:13 a.m. PACAF command notified 7th Air Force at 2:13 a.m. 7th Air Force notified Indopacom at 2:13 a.m. Indopacom notified the National Military Command Center at 2:14 a.m. The notification chain moved at the speed of a major incident because that is what this was. A Russian military aircraft issuing a landing demand to a U.S. military aircraft in international airspace was not a standard intercept. It was an attempt to compel the RC-135 to enter Russian territory under escort. At 2:14 a.m., the two F-22 Raptors that had been maintaining station at 50,000 feet, approximately 60 nautical miles southeast of the RC-135, received their directive from PACAF command to close distance and establish a protective formation. 89. The F-22s had been on that station since the RC-135 had begun its collection run at 11:27 p.m. Their presence had not been announced. Their radar emissions had been minimal to the point of dormancy. The F-22's passive sensor fusion allowed it to maintain situational awareness without the active emissions that would have announced its presence to the Su-35S aircraft's radar warning receivers. The two Su-35S pilots had not known the F-22S were there when they positioned themselves on the RC-135S wingtips. They were about to know. The F-22s descended from 50,000 feet at maximum military power without afterburner, a speed that allowed rapid closure without the infrared signature that afterburner would have produced against the background of the pre-dawn Kamchatka sky. Their radar remained in its lowest emission operating mode. At 2:17 a.m., 6 minutes after the wingtip intercept had begun, the lead F-22 positioned itself 200 meters behind and above the starboard Su-35S. The second F-22 positioned itself 200 meters behind and above the port Su-35S. The Su-35S pilots did not detect the F-22S on their radar warning receivers. They did not detect them on their own radar. They detected them visually. The F-22's silhouette, backlit by the lesser darkness near the Kamchatka horizon, appeared in the port Su-35S pilot's rearview mirror at 2:17 a.m. and 43 seconds. He transmitted a terse 4-word status report to Elizovo Control. The content of that transmission was intercepted by the RC-135's collection systems and was processed and transmitted to PACAF within 90 seconds. Its meaning required no linguistic analysis. The Su-35S pilot had reported a U.S. fighter at close range on his 6 o'clock. The lead Su-35S pilot received the same visual confirmation 11 seconds later. He had a US F-22 200 meters directly behind his aircraft, in a position that any fighter pilot in any air force in the world would classify as a weapons employment envelope. The F-22 had not activated its fire control radar. It had not opened its weapons bay. It had not transmitted anything that could be characterized as a threatening communication. It had simply positioned itself where any professional aviator understood the implications immediately and without words. The geometry of the next 4 minutes was the most precisely maintained piece of aerial choreography that either the US Air Force or the Russian aerospace forces had conducted since the Cold War's intercept games over the Norwegian Sea. Neither aircraft moved. Neither aircraft transmitted. Neither aircraft activated any system that could be characterized as an engagement preparation. The RC-135 maintained course and altitude. The two Su-35SS maintained their wingtip positions. The two F-22s maintained their 6 o'clock positions. 8 aircraft, 4 national assets, flying in close formation in international airspace over the Okhotsk Sea at 2:18 a.m., with the full understanding on all 8 cockpits of exactly what each aircraft represented. The Elizovo Air Defense Command Center had been monitoring the intercept since the Su-35SS launched. At 2:19 a.m., 8 minutes after the wingtip intercept began, Elizovo transmitted a directive to the Su-35S flight lead on the encrypted tactical channel. The RC-135's collection systems acquired the encrypted transmission and logged its time and frequency. Its content was not available in real time. The decryption would require processing that would take hours or days. What was available was the behavioral response to the directive. At 2:20 a.m., the lead Su-35S pilot transmitted a status report on the International Aviation Emergency Frequency, stating only that he was conducting a standard intercept of an aircraft that had entered Russian airspace and was complying with Russian air traffic control instructions. The statement was the diplomatic language of de-escalation. It was a characterization of the situation that allowed the Su-35S to withdraw without the withdrawal constituting an acknowledgement that the intercept demand had failed. The RC-135 was still not in Russian airspace. The withdrawal was still a withdrawal. The diplomatic language was the vehicle that made the withdrawal operationally survivable for the pilot's own reporting chain. At 2:21 a.m., the lead Su-35S rolled gently left, opened the formation laterally to approximately 300 meters, and began a gradual climb away from the RC-135's altitude. The second Su-35S followed at 2:21 a.m. and 40 seconds. Both aircraft were in a departure climb by 2:22 a.m., heading northwest on a bearing consistent with return to Elizovo. The F-22s maintained their positions for 63 seconds after the Su-35s began their withdrawal. Then, at 2:23 a.m., the lead F-22 transmitted on the PACAF command net. Escort formation maintaining. Lead Su-35S departed northwest at 2:21. Formation clear. 6 words of operational significance and the 63-second hold that had communicated, without transmitting anything to the withdrawing aircraft, that the F-22s were not pursuing and were not representing a threat to the departing aircraft. The 63-second hold was itself a communication. Everybody who needed to understand it did. The RC-135 maintained its collection run for an additional 41 minutes after the Su-35S withdrawal, completing its assigned collection window before returning to Misawa on the standard return profile. Its mission commander transmitted the incident report to PACAF at 2:24 a.m. while still on station. The report was classified at the highest available level. Its operational summary section was 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph described the wingtip intercept and the landing demand. The second described the F-22 response and the Su-35S withdrawal. The third was 2 sentences. Collection mission completed as assigned. No weapons employed by any platform. That third paragraph was what defined the operational significance of the sequence. Not a weapon had been fired. Not a targeting radar had been activated in a weapons employment mode. Not an engagement had been initiated. 8 aircraft had operated within 200 meters of each other in international airspace at 2:18 a.m., and the sequence had resolved through the communication of geometric presence, the language of position and formation that fighter pilots learn before they learn anything else about the profession. The Su-35S pilots had positioned themselves on the RC-135's wingtips because that geometry communicated, "We are here, we are close, you are surrounded." The F-22 pilots had positioned themselves on the Su-35SS's 6 o'clock because that geometry communicated. And so are we. Neither crew had needed to say anything in words that the other did not already understand in the logic of fighter formation. The 63-second hold after the Su-35S departure communicated, "We are watching you leave, and we are not following you." That communication was as important as the positioning had been, because without it, the withdrawal could have been interpreted as a tactical reposition rather than a genuine departure. The 63 seconds closed the ambiguity. What had the Russian Federation intended? The post-incident intelligence analysis that consumed 3 separate agency working groups over the following 2 weeks produced 3 competing assessments. The first assessment held that the landing demand was an operational test, a probe of U.S. response protocols designed to determine whether PACAF would scramble F-22 support in response to an intercept demand, at what altitude and distance the F-22 would position itself, and how long the F-22 would maintain its position after the Russian aircraft withdrew. All of this data was now in Russian Aerospace Force's institutional memory. The second assessment held that the landing demand was a genuine attempt to create an incident, to force the RC-135 either into Russian airspace, generating a diplomatic crisis that would constrain future Okhotsk collection operations, or to generate a U.S. response that could be characterized as aggressive and used in the information environment to justify an escalation in Russian intercept posture. The F-22 positioning had prevented both outcomes by making the Su-35S withdrawal the only operationally available response. The third assessment held that the Su-35S pilots had been operating under orders that had not been fully coordinated with their own command chain, that the landing demand had been authorized at a level that had not anticipated the F-22 response, and that the Elizovo directive at 2:19 a.m. had been an instruction to withdraw issued by a command authority that understood what its pilots had not, that the F-22's being there changed everything about what the intercept could accomplish. The 3 assessments were not mutually exclusive. The post-incident working group's joint findings summary noted that all 3 could simultaneously be true. The operation was a test. It was an attempt to create an incident, and it was partially unauthorized at the operational level. The 3 elements were not in tension with each other. They reflected the layered decision-making architecture that intelligence assessments of Russian military operations had consistently characterized as normal. Strategic intent at the top, operational implementation in the middle, tactical authorization gaps at the bottom. The landing demand had been operationally sanctioned. The degree to which the commanding authority understood what the U.S. defensive response would be was the question the intelligence assessments could not answer with confidence. If the Elizovo command had known the F-22s were there, the operation had been a calibrated probe designed to establish whether the F-22 would expose itself to protect the RC-135. If they had not known, the withdrawal at 2:21 a.m. had been damage control under conditions the operation had not anticipated. The 3 assessments were not mutually exclusive. The working groups noted this in their joint findings summary and left the question open. The open question was itself an intelligence product. It indicated that the Russian Federation's decision-making architecture for this type of operation was not fully integrated, that there were gaps between the authorization level that had sent the Su-35SS to the wingtip position and the command authority that had withdrawn them. Gaps in authorization architecture were operationally significant. They suggested future operations might be conducted under similar coordination ambiguity. The RC-135 crew filed their personal accounts in the debriefing format that PACAF's Human Factors program required after any close approach event. The forms asked about physiological stress indicators, decision-making confidence, and post-event assessment of the crew's own performance. The mission commander noted in the free text section of her form that the moment of highest workload had not been the wingtip intercept itself or the landing demand. It had been the 63 seconds after the Su-35S began withdrawing, when the question of whether the withdrawal was genuine or tactical had not yet been resolved. 63 seconds during which she had maintained course, altitude, and speed, and had focused on the collection mission she was there to complete, and had trusted that the F-22s behind the withdrawing aircraft were reading the situation correctly. They had been. The 63-second hold had been the F-22 flight lead's decision, made without a specific directive from PACAF command. The ROE he was operating under authorized him to maintain protective formation until the threat to the RC-135 had been resolved. His assessment was that 63 seconds was the minimum time required to confirm that the Su-35S departure was a genuine withdrawal rather than a setup for a turning engagement at extended range. At 63 seconds, the Su-35Ss were far enough from the RC-135 that a return to the wingtip position would require a full minute of flight time that the RC-135 could use to alter its heading. The threat had been reduced to a manageable level. He transmitted his status at 2:23 a.m. and maintained protective escort formation until the RC-135 completed its collection window. It was the kind of tactical judgment that the ROE framework was designed to enable rather than constrain. A judgment call made in the cockpit of an aircraft 200 meters behind a Russian fighter at 41,000 feet over the Okhotsk at 2:21 a.m. that the subsequent after-action review characterized as correct in both its content and its timing. The collection window completed at 3:04 a.m. In the 41 minutes between the Su-35S departure and the end of the collection window, the RC-135 had operated without further intercept activity. Elizovo had not launched a second intercept. Whether that decision reflected a command assessment that a second attempt would produce the same result, or a communications process that required time to produce a new authorization, was not determinable from available collection. The 41 minutes were quiet in the tactical sense. They were not quiet in the intelligence sense. The collection systems had been running throughout, and the products from those 41 minutes would be as operationally valuable as any collection the mission had generated. The attempt to prevent the collection had not prevented it. The collection window completed at 3:04 a.m. The RC-135 turned east on its return, heading to Misawa. The F-22s flew escort to the boundary of the operational area, and then turned south on their own return profile to Kadena. Nothing had been fired. Nothing had been activated in a weapons employment mode. The Okhotsk was still dark and cold and contested. Both air forces would be over it again within 72 hours. Time from first Su-35S wingtip intercept to Su-35S departure, 10 minutes. Time from landing demand transmission to F-22 visible positioning, 8 minutes. Time from F-22 positioning to Su-35S departure, 4 minutes. Total incident duration, wingtip to departure, 10 minutes. Collection mission completed as assigned. Russian aircraft employed, 2 Su-35S from Elizovo Air Base, Kamchatka. Wingtip intercept formation, landing demand transmitted on International Aviation Emergency Frequency. U.S. assets. 1 RC-135W Rivet Joint on assigned collection mission. 2 F-22A Raptor escort pre-positioned at 50,000 feet, not disclosed to intercept aircraft prior to wingtip engagement. Outcome: landing demand not complied with. RC-135 remained in international airspace throughout. Su-35S withdrawal at 2:21 a.m. following F-22 positioning at 2:17 a.m. No weapons activated in employment mode by any aircraft. No engagement. No communications between F-22 and Su-35S at any point during the incident. Collection mission status: completed as assigned. Collection window ran 41 minutes post-incident without further intercept activity. F-22 positioning geometry: 200 meters behind and above each Su-35S. Within visual range. Outside any published rules of engagement parameter. Inside every fighter pilot's understanding of what that position means. The RC-135 landed at Misawa at 6:47 a.m. The mission commander logged the block time and submitted the collection reports through standard channels. The incident report had already been transmitted at 2:24 a.m. The intelligence products from the collection run were being processed at Misawa before the aircraft taxied to its parking spot. The collection that the Su-35SS had tried to prevent had been completed. The Okhotsk was quiet again. For now.